Most people believe that outsmarting others begins with having a higher IQ, speaking more convincingly, or always having the perfect answer. But history tells us something very different. The greatest strategists were rarely the loudest people in the room. They weren't constantly proving how intelligent they were. Instead, they possessed something much more valuable: mastery over themselves. Before they learned to influence kingdoms, negotiate alliances, or defeat powerful enemies, they first conquered the one opponent that never stopped challenging them: their own emotions. This is the first rule of total dominance. If you cannot control yourself, someone else eventually will. Think about how easily people can predict the average person. Insult them, and they become defensive. Praise them, and they become comfortable. Ignore them, and they become desperate for attention. Challenge their beliefs, and they begin arguing emotionally instead of thinking logically. In every one of these situations, their behavior is no longer their own. It has been dictated by someone else. The moment another person can control your emotional state, they have quietly taken control of your decisions. Power has never been about physical strength. It has always been about emotional stability. The person who remains calm while everyone else reacts becomes the one who naturally gains influence. When others panic, they think less clearly. When they become angry, they expose their weaknesses. When fear enters the room, logic quietly leaves through the back door. Yet the individual who remains composed sees opportunities that emotional people completely overlook. This is why emotional discipline is not passive, it is strategic. Many people confuse calmness with weakness. They assume that responding immediately proves confidence, but immediate reactions are often signs of impulsiveness, not strength. The strongest people understand the value of delay. They allow emotion to settle before making decisions. They recognize that every unnecessary reaction gives away valuable information about who they are, what bothers them, and where they can be manipulated. Every emotion you display becomes intelligence for someone who is paying attention. Consider how skilled negotiators operate. They rarely interrupt, they rarely rush to fill silence. Instead, they allow other people to become uncomfortable. And something fascinating happens. Most individuals cannot tolerate silence for very long. They begin explaining themselves. They volunteer information they never intended to reveal. They expose motivations, insecurities, and hidden objectives simply because they feel compelled to speak. Silence, therefore, is not the absence of communication. It is one of the most powerful forms of communication. People underestimate those who speak less because they assume silence means uncertainty. In reality, silence often means calculation. While others are busy expressing every thought that enters their mind, the strategist is collecting data. Every sentence spoken by another person is another piece of the psychological puzzle. Every facial expression, hesitation, and contradiction reveals something valuable. Observation is the forgotten superpower of intelligent people. Most individuals enter conversations with one goal: to be understood. The strategist enters with an entirely different objective: to understand. That single difference changes everything. Imagine walking into a room without any desire to impress anyone. Instead of wondering how people perceive you, you begin studying how they perceive each other. Who constantly seeks validation, who dominates conversations, who avoids eye contact, who watches more than they speak. Within minutes, patterns begin to emerge. Human behavior is surprisingly predictable once emotion no longer clouds your perception. This is why detached observation creates enormous advantages. Nature itself teaches this lesson. The eagle does not waste energy chasing every movement below. It circles patiently, observing from above until the perfect moment arrives. The lion does not roar before every hunt. It waits quietly until success becomes almost inevitable. The greatest forces in nature succeed through patience rather than constant activity. Human beings are no different, yet modern life encourages the exact opposite. We are rewarded for instant opinions, immediate responses, endless explanations, and constant visibility. We mistake activity for progress. We believe every criticism deserves an answer. Every challenge deserves a response. Every disagreement requires defense, but the wisest minds understand that attention is one of life's most limited resources. Every unnecessary argument drains it. Every emotional reaction weakens it. Every attempt to prove yourself wastes it. The truly powerful individual chooses carefully where to invest emotional energy, because they understand that discipline creates clarity. There is another reason observation matters. People reveal themselves far more through habits than through words. Words are often crafted, habits rarely are. Someone may tell you they are honest, confident, and loyal, but their daily behavior quietly reveals whether those claims are true. Watch how they treat people who cannot benefit them. Watch how they behave when no reward exists. Watch how they react when plans fail. Character always appears under pressure. Most deception fails because people become impatient. They listen to promises instead of patterns. The strategist trusts patterns. This mindset requires humility. It requires admitting that no matter how intelligent you believe yourself to be, there is always more information hidden beneath the surface. The moment you assume you already understand someone completely is often the moment you become vulnerable to surprise. Curiosity protects power, arrogance destroys it. The greatest psychological advantage you can develop is becoming difficult to read while becoming exceptionally skilled at reading others. Let people wonder what you think. Let them underestimate your preparation. Let them mistake your patience for hesitation. Their assumptions become opportunities. The less they know about your intentions, the harder it becomes to influence your decisions. Remember, every chess master studies the entire board before touching a single piece. Beginners rush into action because movement feels productive. Masters understand that the right move is only obvious after careful observation. Life follows the same principle. Your first battle is never against another person. It is against your own impatience, your own ego, and your own need to react. Win that battle consistently, and every external challenge becomes easier to navigate. Lose it, and even the smallest conflict can control your future. So before you seek to outsmart anyone else, ask yourself a harder question. Can you remain calm when others cannot? Can you stay silent when everyone else is desperate to speak? Can you observe without judging and think without reacting? Because those who answer yes to these questions possess something far greater than cleverness. They possess self-mastery. And remember this, asterisk asterisk, the person who rules their own mind can never be ruled by someone else's game. Asterisk asterisk, once you have learned to master your own emotions and discipline your reactions, you arrive at a much deeper level of strategy. This is where most people lose the game without ever realizing they were playing one. It is the realm of perception. Human beings like to believe they make decisions based on facts, but psychology tells us something different. More often than not, people respond to what they believe is true rather than what actually is. They react to appearances, assumptions, and carefully constructed impressions. If you understand this principle, you begin to see that influence is rarely about forcing outcomes. It is about shaping perception long before anyone notices they are being influenced. This is why some people consistently seem one step ahead. They are not necessarily stronger, wealthier, or even more intelligent than everyone around them. They simply understand that every interaction begins in the mind. Before anyone evaluates your abilities, they evaluate the story they have created about you. That story determines how they speak to you, how much they trust you, how much they underestimate you, and ultimately how much power they unknowingly hand over to you. The average person spends enormous energy trying to appear impressive. They want everyone to recognize their intelligence immediately. They reveal every accomplishment, announce every plan, and constantly search for validation. Ironically, this often weakens their position. The moment people believe they understand you completely, they stop paying attention. Predictability creates vulnerability. The strategist understands something far more valuable. Never allow people to believe they have fully figured you out. There is tremendous strength in remaining partially unknown. When others cannot accurately predict your next move, they hesitate. They begin questioning their assumptions. They become cautious because uncertainty forces the mind to slow down. This hesitation creates space, and space creates opportunity. Think about the greatest military commanders throughout history. Their victories were rarely built on overwhelming force alone. They often won because they controlled what their opponents believed. They spread misleading information, concealed their true intentions, appeared weaker than they really were, or moved in unexpected ways. Their enemies were defeated mentally before the first battle even began. The same principle applies to everyday life. In business, the individual who quietly develops new skills often surprises competitors who assumed they understood their capabilities. In leadership, the manager who listens more than they speak often commands deeper respect than the one constantly reminding everyone of their authority. In personal relationships, the individual who remains emotionally steady during conflict often gains far more influence than the one trying desperately to win every argument. Power grows in silence, while insecurity often announces itself loudly. This brings us to another essential principle of psychological dominance. Understand what truly motivates people. Most conversations happen on two levels. There are the words people speak, and then there are the emotions driving those words. The average listener hears only the surface. The strategist listens beneath it. Someone may argue aggressively, but beneath that aggression may be fear of losing status. Someone may criticize constantly, but beneath the criticism may be insecurity about their own value. Someone may seek endless attention, not because they are confident, but because they are deeply afraid of being ignored. When you recognize the emotion beneath the behavior, you stop reacting to appearances and begin responding to reality. This changes everything. Instead of becoming frustrated by difficult people, you begin asking different questions. What are they protecting? What insecurity are they trying to hide? What desire is quietly influencing their decisions? What fear is shaping their behavior? These questions transform ordinary conversations into psychological insight. People rarely reveal their deepest motivations directly because many are unaware of them themselves. Human beings are experts at creating rational explanations for emotional decisions. They tell themselves they want success because of ambition, when often they seek approval. They tell themselves they are pursuing power because of leadership, when often they are escaping feelings of weakness. The conscious mind creates stories. The unconscious mind creates behavior. Your task is not to judge these motivations. Your task is to recognize them. Observation without judgment is one of the rarest forms of intelligence. Notice how exceptional negotiators rarely argue against emotions. They acknowledge them, understand them, and gently redirect them. They know logic alone seldom changes minds. People first need to feel understood before they become willing to reconsider their position. This is why empathy can become an extraordinary strategic advantage. Many people misunderstand empathy as softness. In reality, empathy is information. It allows you to predict reactions before they happen. It allows you to anticipate resistance before it appears. It helps you communicate in ways that naturally lower defenses instead of provoking them. Understanding people does not mean allowing yourself to be manipulated by them. It means recognizing the forces influencing their choices so that you remain clear while others become emotionally entangled. There is another subtle lesson hidden here. Never underestimate the power of letting others underestimate you. Ego constantly tempts us to prove ourselves. We want recognition now. We want people to know our abilities immediately. Yet history repeatedly rewards those who delay the need for recognition. When people underestimate you, they often lower their guard. They reveal plans they would otherwise conceal. They overlook your preparation. They become overconfident. Their certainty blinds them to possibilities they never considered. Meanwhile, you continue learning. You continue observing. You continue preparing. Then, when the right moment arrives, your actions carry far greater impact because they were unexpected. Remember that confidence does not require constant display. A mountain does not announce its height. The ocean does not remind anyone of its depth. Their presence alone communicates strength. True confidence feels no urgency to convince. As you move through life, pay attention to how quickly people label others. Society loves categories because categories reduce uncertainty. Once someone is called intelligent, weak, successful, difficult, charming, or ordinary, people begin interpreting every future action through that label. Resist the temptation to become trapped inside any single perception, either your own or someone else's. Continue evolving quietly. The most dangerous person in any room is often not the loudest, the richest, or the most charismatic. It is the one who understands people better than they understand themselves while revealing very little in return. That individual controls the invisible currents beneath every conversation, and that is where real influence lies. So as you leave this idea behind and prepare for the final principle, remember this. Never waste your energy trying to dominate people's attention. Instead, learn to shape their perception through patience, observation, and understanding. Because in every contest of influence, the mind that sees beneath appearances will always move before the crowd even realizes the game has begun. Now we arrive at the final principle, the one that separates people who merely understand strategy from those who embody it. Mastering your emotions gives you control over yourself. Learning to shape perception gives you influence over others, but neither of those qualities has lasting value unless every action you take serves a larger purpose. This is the fifth rule of total dominance. Move with precision, not emotion. The most powerful people in history were not defined by how often they acted. They were defined by how deliberately they acted. Most people confuse movement with progress. They believe that if they are constantly responding, speaking, posting, arguing, or chasing opportunities, they must be moving forward. Yet activity without direction is nothing more than controlled chaos. A person can spend years being busy and still arrive nowhere meaningful because every decision was made in reaction to the moment rather than in service of a long-term vision. The strategist refuses to live this way. Every decision begins with a question. Does this move bring me closer to the person I intend to become? Or is it simply satisfying an emotion I will regret tomorrow? That single question has the power to transform your life. Think about how many opportunities people destroy because they allow temporary emotions to make permanent decisions. Anger ruins relationships that took years to build. Pride prevents valuable partnerships. Impatience causes people to abandon projects just before success arrives. The desire for immediate recognition leads talented individuals to reveal plans before they are ready, inviting unnecessary criticism and competition. Emotion seeks relief, strategy seeks results. The difference is enormous. History consistently rewards those who understand timing. Timing is not simply knowing when to act, it is knowing when not to act. There is extraordinary discipline in resisting the temptation to force outcomes before the conditions are ready. A seed cannot be pulled from the ground to make it grow faster. A skilled architect does not begin building before the foundation is secure. Likewise, a strategist understands that rushing toward victory often delays it. Patience, however, should never be mistaken for passivity. Patience is active preparation. While others complain about delays, the strategist studies. While others seek shortcuts, the strategist strengthens skills. While others chase applause, the strategist quietly builds competence that no one can take away. When the opportunity finally appears, it looks like luck to everyone watching. In reality, it is simply preparation meeting the right moment. This brings us to another lesson that many people overlook. Never allow your actions to become predictable. Predictability offers comfort, but it also gives others a map of your behavior. When people know exactly how you will respond, they can begin shaping your reactions to serve their own interests. This does not mean becoming inconsistent or deceptive. It means remaining intentional. Speak because your words create value, not because silence feels uncomfortable. Say no because it protects your priorities, not because you wish to appear difficult. Change direction when wisdom requires it, not because your ego fears looking uncertain. Purpose should guide every move. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing they must constantly prove their worth. They feel obligated to answer every criticism, defend every decision, and correct every misunderstanding. Yet the truly powerful rarely waste energy chasing approval. They understand that reputation is not built through explanation, it is built through consistent action over time. There will always be people who misunderstand you. There will always be critics who invent stories about your intentions. There will always be individuals who project their own fears and insecurities onto your success. You cannot control their opinions. You can control your response. The more energy you spend managing other people's perceptions, the less energy remains for building the life you actually want. Instead, allow your work to become your argument. Allow your discipline to become your explanation. Allow your consistency to become your reputation. Over time, results speak with a clarity that words never can. There is another subtle principle worth remembering. Every commitment you make is also a decision about what you will not pursue. This is why successful people appear selective. They understand that saying yes to everything eventually means saying no to excellence. Focus creates power. Scattered attention creates weakness. Imagine sunlight spreading across an entire field. It provides warmth, but little impact. Now imagine that same light passing through a magnifying lens. Suddenly, it becomes powerful enough to ignite fire. Human attention operates the same way. Your greatest achievements will rarely come from doing more things. They will come from directing your energy toward fewer things with extraordinary consistency. This is where discipline becomes freedom. Many people think discipline limits their choices. In truth, discipline protects them from the distractions that quietly steal years of potential. Every unnecessary conflict avoided, every impulsive purchase resisted, every emotional reaction controlled, every hour invested in meaningful work. These are small decisions that compound into extraordinary lives. Greatness is rarely created through dramatic moments. It is built through ordinary decisions repeated with remarkable consistency. As your reputation grows, remember one final lesson. Never become intoxicated by your own success. Nothing blinds a person faster than believing they have already mastered the game. Arrogance ends the education that wisdom requires. The moment you stop learning, someone hungrier, more patient, and more observant quietly begins surpassing you. Stay curious, stay adaptable, stay humble enough to question yourself even after others begin admiring you. The strongest oak tree continues growing long after it appears fully mature. Likewise, the strongest mind never reaches a point where learning becomes unnecessary. Ultimately, total dominance is not about controlling other people. That is the misunderstanding many carry into discussions of power. Real dominance is the ability to remain composed when others lose control, to see clearly when others are distracted, and to act deliberately when others are driven by impulse. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your actions are aligned with your values and your long-term purpose. When you reach that point, something remarkable happens. You no longer chase influence, it begins to follow you. You no longer demand respect, it is offered naturally. You no longer seek validation because your confidence is rooted in discipline rather than applause. And that is the paradox of true power. The less you need to prove it, the more undeniable it becomes. So as you leave this conversation and return to your own life, remember these three principles. Master your emotions before they master you. Shape perception through patience, observation, and understanding. Then act with unwavering purpose, allowing every decision to serve a future greater than the present moment. Because in the end, the person who wins the game of life is not the one who reacts the fastest, but the one who thinks the deepest, moves the wisest, and remains impossible to control.